Hello masibhotise babukeli emakhaya nakwindawo ngendawo enibukeleni kuzo. Masinamkeleke kwisiqendu sethu sale inkqubo Yilungelo Lakho. It's your right here on SABC 1 Mzansi for sure. Igama lam kaloku nguSisanda Jonas nzaba kunye nani ke kude kube licala emveni kwentsimbi yesibini. Khumbula ke inombolo zethu apha e-studio zithi 011 714 6918 okanye ke ku-011 714 6919. Ningasithumelela ke ne-email ku consumer@sabc.co.za okanye ke nisifumane ku-Facebook okanye ku-Twitter. And as we approach the festive season, criminals will be preying on unsuspecting consumers. And some of the easy targets will be those carrying huge amounts of cash, particularly people making large bank withdrawals or those en route to banks to deposit cash.
With just a month and some weeks to go before the festive season kicks off, the South African Banking Risk Information Centre and consumer rights groups are warning consumers on some of the things that could turn their holiday into a nightmare. One of those is consumers parting with their hard-earned cash. Syndicates who also use spotters in and around banks and shopping malls are often keeping a sharp eye on those carrying loads of cash. And these have always been systematically targeted by robbers during the festive period. The South African Banking Risk Information Centre says it has noted an increase in robberies in previous years. While there are currently signs of an improvement, Gauteng, the Eastern and Western Cape, including KwaZulu-Natal, have in the past accounted for most incidents of robberies on customers. And the financial loss to customers and banks is in the region of millions of rand in all 4 provinces. So, banking customers are being advised to find alternative ways of banking, such as making money transfers instead of carrying cash. While the festive period is still several weeks away, the mood has already begun with some of the consumers making plans for the holiday. These include saving clubs, stock fairs, people wishing to do some of their Christmas shopping ahead of time. There are also those who've been saving throughout the year to spend their money during this period. The South African Banking Risk Information Centre has given some of the tips that include using the convenience of electronic means of banking such as the internet, cell phone banking and ATM transfers. Asking the bank for advice on some of the banking time options, including the best times for doing certain transactions. Being alert of your surroundings when going to the bank to withdraw cash or deposit. If one suspects they are being followed, they should divert to the police station. Always seek the company of someone you trust when going to the bank to deposit or withdraw cash. Only withdraw the amount you need. Avoid visiting the same bank branch at the same time and the same day of the week for cash deposits or withdrawals. Members of the public suspecting dodgy activities are encouraged to report at the police station or anonymously through the crime tip-off line.
And now to take our discussion further on the dangers of carrying cash this time of the year into the festive season, let's welcome Kevin Twinan, yena ke oyinhloko ejongene neziganeko zokuqweqwediswa ke kwezithuthi ezithwala imali kwa-South African Banking Risk Information Centre. Sinaye ke no Captain Paul Ramaloko, yena usisithethi sikazwelonke kwicandelo lamapolisa iHawks. Samkele ke noRoni Zonke, yena ongumphathi oyinhloko ejongene ke nobundlobongela kwa-South African, also from SABC. Gentlemen, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Let me start off with you, Mr. Zonke, that SABC has come out warning South Africans about carrying a lot of money with them, especially around this time. How rife are incidents of robberies when we look at such this kind of incidents in the country? What made SABC want to come and warn South Africans about this issue?
Thank you, Sisanda. Firstly, this is an annual campaign by the banking industry. We started with it in 2009. And ever since, it has grown to this magnitude. But what I can say is we have achieved what we wanted to achieve, not fully though, in terms of reporting, because if you look at the incident starting in 2009, year to date, the reporting process has improved remarkably, and we are more than 100%. In fact, it's 286%. That is one part. Secondly, it is very concerning to the banks that these incidents seem to affect bank customers, and some of them result in fatalities. And therefore, it is from that perspective that the banking industry, together with our stakeholders and partners, felt that it was imperative that we embark on this initiative.
Before we delve further, Mr. Twynham, just introduce SABC to us and its mandate.
Yeah. Well, firstly, SABC, the acronym South African Banking Risk Information Centre, was established by the banks, particularly to support them in their fight against crime. Over and above a number of objectives, SABC coordinates interbank activities, particular activities relating to crime, both in the commercial environment and on the violent crime side. SABC also acts as a nodal point between the banking industry and others in respect of banking-related crime. One of the focus areas of SABC particularly is creating awareness, particularly public awareness and education about bank-related crime that affects obviously clients.
Kwicala lamapolisa i-crimes ezi okanye iziganeko ezilolu hlobo that affect people kweleni icala nibona ntoni?
We are saying as the police, our responsibility is to arrest these people and to take them to court. So it is important that people report this victimization so that the suspects get what they deserve.
But inkulu kangakanani le ngxaki?
No, it is during the festive season we see the escalation of these violent crimes, and during the course of the year you will see it subsiding, but of course during peak hours the crime goes high.
SABC ikhuphe ke statement esichaza giving us tips on what to look out for, and also warning South Africans about these carrying their cash and how they can become victims if they carry their cash or a lot of money with them. But I wanted to find out firstly from you in terms of your provinces and ifumanisa ukuba lento yenzeka kakhulu kuzo.
Sisanda, i-Gauteng province yeyona ine problem ezininzi. In fact, masijonga kwi-statistics zethu 50% of the problem is here in Gauteng. I-Western Cape ne KZN ne Eastern Cape ziyalandela. If you remember last year besilonche le campaign kwezo provinces zone.
All right, Mr. Twynham, this is not new. You've started this program in 2009, obviously because you saw that there's a problem and you want to bring a solution into the fold. Now, I wanted to find out what are the reasons, particularly people focus on these four provinces, and do you see that the trend is going to increase as we go into the festive season?
Sisanda, I think firstly from the outset, let me just say that this particular crime type that we're referring to, and the banks refer to it as an associated robbery, and it has many names. Some people refer to it as follow-on robberies, and it varies from province to province. The fact of the matter is that this robbery does not directly affect the banks per se. It is directed at the bank's clients. And obviously, banks are very, very concerned about their clients. The majority of these robberies are taking place away from the bank or en route to the bank, as was indicated in the introduction. And the fact of the matter is that it does not affect the banks, but just to reiterate that the banks are very concerned about their clients. Now, we've been monitoring, as my colleague had indicated a little earlier, we've been monitoring this since 2003. However, when the first launch of this campaign started in 2008, 2009, we saw an increase, but worried about it, but through the monitoring realized that the awareness it created or encouraged people to report this crime. And since then we'd seen an increase, leveled out in 2010, well, in fact 2011, and it's just been sustained from then until now. So would one call it saturated? I use the term saturated because we're seeing a leveling out of this crime type since then. But the fact that we've seen a slight decline or increase does not necessarily mean we should not be and continue, because awareness is not a once-off thing. It should be continuously be brought to the attention of the public that there are dangers and risks in terms of carrying not necessarily only large amounts of cash, because the amounts can vary. It's just that by visiting a bank, the perception is that you are going to do a transaction in terms of cash, and this is what our criminals are prying on. Victims, for that matter, old, young, but that's why we're continuing with this awareness campaign.
Who is normally a target?
Well, at this stage, we've got three categories in terms of this. The individual can vary, particularly depending on what the circumstances of the crime, and we've subcategorized the crime type, particular associated robbery. I alluded to it a little earlier in terms of en route to the bank, that's obviously before deposit, and then from a bank after withdrawal, but there are various other categories. In some cases, in terms of the individuals, it can be an individual, it can be some of our senior citizens that are targeted, making withdrawals or doing transactions and being robbed of their hard-earned cash. They could fraudulently be conned out of their cash, and if they do not then fall for these con tricks by some of these perpetrators, violence is used. So we have the smaller business who obviously on a daily basis or on a weekly basis have to transact and do deposits and make payments, and so they also target. And then particularly, we referred to this earlier, is that this time of the year we have saving clubs, we have stokvels, we have burial societies. A number of these people are probably going to benefit from this during the festive season, and they are probably targets.
Abantu baye bafike kuni banichazela iziganeko ezibehleleyo baye bathini kuni?
Sisanda, we are interfacing nama-bank customers, but law information siyifumana via i-banks. Into esiyifumanayo ukuthi abantu eziba Kevin etouchile enye yale miba is that abantu abakhulu bona kakhulu ba affectwa zi-schemes and scams, into ezifana ne-competition scams, nento ezifana isikhona iskema basibiza imani bomb apho balahla imali phansi, then umuntu acinga ba hey ndachola, then ekuyicholeni kwakhe lo mali ze kufike omnye athi hey masihambe soyishare le mali, and kanjalo bahambe away from the bank, then umuntu abe uyarojwa ngolo hlobo. And again, ezinye ke is schemes and scams zezi competition, apho abantu abakhulu baba ngamaxhoba kuthiwe yizamama uwinile nansi imali, I mean awukwazi nje uwina ungakhange udlale, ufuna udlala kuqala uze uwin. Then abantu ke bangene ke kulo mgiba, bathathwe basiwe kwezo ndawo barojwe imali zabo. So zezinye nje izinto ezingasiphathi kakuhle kanjalo. Then ezibhankeni zona i-scams zakhona ezenzeka, uyafumanisa ukuthi kukho abantu abanye bazi bank customers bane account ezibhanka, bangena ngaphakathi legitimately ezokwenza i-account, but kodwa ke abanye abangeni ngezo njongo zokwenza i-bank transaction. Ufumanisa ukuthi aba bazogada ukuthi ngubani umuntu otsala imali P, then le information zabayinikeze kwabanye abasebenzisa nabo.
After the break masiqhubeke ngale ncoko. Kwangoku ke ake sithitsi evenkileni, kodwa phambi koko ke yithi ndinikhumbuza ukuba nani ningayinxalenye yencoko yethu yanamhlanje. Our studio calling numbers 011-714-6918 okanye ke ku-011-714-6919. Our email address is consumer@sabc.co.za, okanye usifumane ku-Facebook Yilungelo Lakho, okanye usilandele ku-Twitter. Please join us after this. Welcome back. You're still watching Yilungelo Lakho. It's your right here on SABC 1 Mzansi for sure. We are still talking about safety tips on carrying cash as we move towards the festive season. My guests are Kevin Twynham from the South African Banking Risk Information Center, Captain Paul Ramaloko, National Spokesperson of the Hawks, and we have Ronnie Zonke, also from SABC. And the term that's being used is spotters. Mr. Twynham, just take us through the modus operandi of these perpetrators, how these crimes actually take place.
Well, obviously, at any given time, I base the answer on some of the research that we've done, case studies. So, what would normally happen is that on any given day, and we do the analysis in terms of what we are seeing within the banking industry, is that you might find a particular individual loitering in the bank, coming into the bank to do a transaction, joining a queue, and the purpose of that is not necessarily to do any transactions. It's obviously to identify potential victims within the bank who are conducting transactions, particular cash transactions, and from there, that message is then relayed to a group of people outside of the bank who are actually waiting with a description of the particular victim, who then follow him to an appropriate venue where he's then robbed of that cash.
All right, now David Matebula yena ke uphume Soweto. Mr. Matebula, wamkelekile enkqubeni?
Sawubona mama.
Sawubona tata.
Ngiyayizwa inkulumo yokukhulunyayo lapho. Kuyenzakala konke lokhu kukhulumayo. Engibuza kumbabo lo wama-Hawks ukuthi bangasinikeza lesiqiniseko esingakanani for i-security engaka ngoba ubugebengu lobuqala khona phakathi ebank. Abantu abasenza ebank bane-connection nezigebengu ngaphandle. And on top of that, i-crime ingeke ize iphele as long abantu bangasebenzi and abantu baxoshwe khona manje xoshwa abantu ema-mine. We expect a lot of ukuthi abantu i-crime ibe yiningi. Ukugcina ukuthi ilizwe lethu alicontroleki ngesizathu siyi-one ukuthi sinabantu abaningi abahlala kuleli lizwe lethu abaphuma ngaphandle abangarejistwanga noma kwenziwa ama-fingerprints kwenziwa ama-house breaking and all that akutholakali ama-fingerprints alabantu. So ugovernment wethu usilahlelele phezu kobugebengu and in such a way ukuthi sicela ukwazi ukuthi kubabo lo ama-Hawks ukuthi bona njengabantu bama-Hawks what are they intending to do ngale crime engaka kulelizwe lethu elixoshela even nezivakashi efana zivakashele ezweni lethu zisaba lobugebengu obungaka.
Enkosi kakhulu ke tata. Sacela wena captain usiphendule.
Mr. Matebula, you will agree with me that we won't cap the whole crime in a day. So we are saying that in the recent past we made notable successes in that we managed to dismantle this syndicate because these guys are working, in a very organized way. In that, yes, they will collude with people in the bank because in most cases they won't know, criminals outside of the bank won't know how much you transacted. We do agree that they do collude with those guys in the bank. We are aware of that, and we are gradually making them responsible for their wrongdoings.
And the conviction rate?
We do have very good convictions in this regard because these are, we're talking about robbery here. It's a very serious crime, a priority crime. Mr. Matebula will see, in his neighborhood, these people being cracked down.
An interesting story that I came across on these spotters particularly was that I think it was a 2011 or 2010 story, but they were jailed for life. They were not at the scene, but they were jailed for life because they were to blame as well. That shows that something is happening.
Absolutely. I think the captain just alluded to that there's been some successes. I'd just like to add in terms of what is being done in the bank. Obviously, the banks are taking have introduced a number of processes and procedures and have policy in terms of staff, possible staff collusion, because we have some of these allegations. And have put measures in place to try and curb this from before it transpires. In other words, as the captain indicated, that they don't have access to the information unless it's directly and verbally given by a staff member. But at any given time, the manner in which banking is done and the conversation between client and the teller obviously can be heard if you look at the queuing system within the banks. And these are things that the banks continuously look at in terms of improving measures to minimize the opportunities for them to be able to become victim, for their clients to become victim.
Just elaborate further on the kind of activities that you are working on.
There are a number of activities that we're busy with as a banking industry, and Kevin has just touched on one or a couple of them. And although that we cannot reveal all the security measures in place, but I mean, it is known that when you inside the bank and you are busy transacting, use of cell phone is not allowed.
Yes.
And unfortunately, these things do happen at times.
Masibambe apho ke sinayo Makepa yena from Soshanguve. Dada wamkelekile nkubeni?
Ahelike mama.
Gideng mama.
Gideng ke Makepa ke rabolelang. Ke kopela go commander le kanyane usually le governor kam khole bona go kele matsebo bontsi. You know where those people hanshira lo ba romela ba have won something usually are people from other countries, and I don't know how do we get our contact details. And how do we stop that or that block? Is a way they could do that.
All right.
Because now, I just received an SMS saying that Congress, your number has won 3,500,000. Like, come on, I never entered that competition.
All right.
I'm from Rita, whatever.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Mama.
Okay, bye.
Is it something you can comment on? Obviously, most of us have received these SMSs. It's quite a huge problem in the country. Her question is, what can something be done about this?
Yeah, basically, what is happening is individuals put their information on the social network. So do you have your Facebook, you have your whatever, I mean, and people are having their day-to-day retail accounts where underneath they ask you on your retail account if your information must be shared with other people. And people mark yes there. And then in most of the time you find that our information is, I mean, accessible to whoever need it, not only on the social network, but on the retail accounts that individuals are taking. They do ask you if you should, they must share your information with other consumer, yes, service providers.
All right, for now, let's take another ad break. Hlala kwenye nathi. Sinamkele kwakhona babukeli siqhubekeke ngengxoxo yethu elumkisa ngobungozi bokuhamba uthwele intaphane yemali njengoko ke sikusondela kwithuba le-holide. Mr. Twynham, you wanted to also air your views with regards to what we were talking about earlier before we went on break, but also just elaborate on the role that SABC has, supportive role that it has with the police.
Yeah. I think more importantly is that that the banking industry has a sound relationship in the form of a partnership with the South African Police Service, and banks obviously do internal investigations in terms of any allegation that's made of collusion for that matter, or if there's anything that happens on the bank premises, bank investigators will become involved. And particularly from a criminal point of view, if there's a criminal matter, they will tie up with the police investigators and give support in terms of what they have found. That's on the one hand. On the other hand, in terms of information sharing is a very, very important thing in being able to share the information and experiences we've had in the banking industry with our counterparts in the South African Police Services to create awareness and obviously to assist and support where we can in terms of the success.
All right, just now noma wethu from King Williamstown, noma wethu amkelekile nkubeni. Hello, noma wethu.
Hello, sizulile.
Noma wethu ngicela ke sisi ucimele iTV yakho kanye uhlise volume mama. Mama noma wethu?
Okay.
All right, ngiyabonga kakhulu. Siyavala ke ngoku.
Volume.
All right, ke mama ufuna uthini ukuthi namhlanje?
Hello.
Mama noma wethu ngiyakuzwa ufuna uthini ukuthi namhlanje?
Sisi ndinengxaki sisi apha. Le ithetha apha iyafana nale yakwaSASSA kuba imali yebo kukho bukhithikhi iyafana nale yakwaSASSA kuba inenzeka kade bathintele amakhadi kwaSASSA kwesipeya ezibhankini ngoku sinengxaki xa imali zethu aziphumi ziphelele ngelo xesha bathethe basenzela safe
uba imali zethu zatsalwa ziigambane esingazaziyo.
Alright, enkosi kakhulu ke mama noma wethu. Umama ke uthetha ngomnye umba sizawuzama ke mhlawumbi nathi siwujonge apha ke kwilungelo lakho. Enkosi kakhulu ke kuye umama noma wethu. Manibuyele kuwe ke captain ne. I-SMS engenileyo kukho abantu abasuggest into yokubana police visibility must increase around banks. Ungabungathini wena kulonto?
Yes, we are saying that police are actually available next to the banks, and the National Commissioner of Police, General Peya, also alluded to that to say visibility is a priority for the police, and we do have our members there at the bank who must be which must be approached by the potential victim. If a person feels that he's a potential victim of some sort, he can just approach our members who will be doing some patrols around the banks. So our members are there.
All right. Another suggestion was that cameras, there must be more cameras installed. What does SABC say to that?
Obviously, cameras are important because that's part of the research and case studies that are being conducted to reveal this that I've just indicated in terms of the way the modus operandi has happened. Unfortunately, cameras on their own do not deter crime, and obviously it's merely a detector than anything else, as opposed to becoming a deterrent for criminals. Because it's happening inside the bank and the criminals are aware that they're cameras. So yes, to a certain extent cameras are important, but I think on their own they're certainly not a deterrent.
All right, let's look at some of these tips eniza nazo. Okokuqala nine program eninayo, mhlawumbe kasichazeleke ngekey message eniphetheyo ngeprogram eninayo.
Sisanda si-believer singu-SABC ne-banking industry ukuthi sawuthi ukuze siphumelele kwelidabi si-empowerishe i-bank customers, and i-key message yethu yokuqala is directed exactly at that, ukuthi i-customers zethu zibe nolwazi olwaneleyo ukuthi babe nokwazi ukuthi benze informed decision. Umba wokuqala ukuthi i-bank customers zingaphathi imali engaphaya kangangoba ifuneka kuzo in person, and leyo into ithetha directly to inansika i-campaign yethu. Umba wesibini ukuthi si-contribute si-banking industry kwi-safety and security ye-bank customer by giving as much information as sinokwazi. And okwesithathu sizama ukuthi silimite amathuba which is crime opportunities, ukuthi xa lo muntu simxhobisile oyi-bank customer wanolwazi oluninji, i-chances zokuthi abe yi-victim ziba less, and that i-level ye-awareness yakhe also izawuthi ikhulu, ayazi ukuthi xa isiye ebhanka akufani nokuthi uhambisa umntana ekrishi uphethe imali and kunodyakalashe abakhona, and therefore your levels funke of being aware funke nazo zibe ziyanyuka.
All right, here are some of the tips for carrying cash safely on your screen. All right, xa sesiqhubekela phambili ke nenkqubo yethu sinaye ke uLakhi Nkosi yena ke ophuma eSoweto. Lakhi, wamkelekile enkqubeni?
Yebo mama, kunjani?
Siyaphila tata, kunjani kuwe?
Ngiyaphila mama. Mama, mina into engiyibonako ngegovernment yethu, igovernment yethu yiyo ebulala isizwe sethu la eSouth Africa, ngoba kusuka abantu bangaphandle njengoba ubhuti bekakhulumile ukuthi ama-foreigners asuka angaphandle eze la eSouth Africa afike abe nama-ID ala South Africa. Ama-foreigners ahamba amazweni abo baholele imali yala eSouth Africa bangasibona bala, kodwa uthola umuntu eZimbabwe adrowa imali ye-grant yala. So angeke ziphele icrime ngendaba ukuthi i-government ayekubuka konke lokho.
Alright, siyabulela ke tata nge-comment yakho kule inkqubo yanamhlanje. Let's look at some of these tips that SABC has come up with for carrying cash safely. I mean, I'm looking at one where you're saying carry as little cash as possible.
Sisanda, obviously, cash will. We're not promoting a cashless society. It's not going to happen. We have to be realistic about it. But we're having people carrying unnecessarily carrying large amounts of cash, which makes them potential victims, and that's what we're trying to inform the the clients out there is that don't unnecessarily carry cash with you. Obviously, why carry 1,000 rand if 50 rand or 20 rand is more than enough? You have points of service in terms of transactions at ATMs, at banks, at will, after hours. So these are things that we're trying to encourage, is that people do not carry large amounts of cash on their person because they will become victims.
Another problem or another concern that Sabrik has raised is that people think that this only happens to business owners, but it also happens to ordinary customers or consumers.
Absolutely. I earlier again alluded to the fact that we have our gogos out there who actually make a withdrawal for a monthly purpose to buy their groceries. There are other means of transacting, but that's exactly, carrying that large amount of cash is what makes them potential victims.
All right. Masibambek apho ke siphinde sithi evenkileni siyabuya. A very warm welcome back. Please remember our participation lines are 011-714-6918 or 714-6919. And of course, our email address is consumer@sabc.co.za. You can also catch us on Facebook or Twitter. We looked at tips to avoid being a victim of cash robberies for individuals. Let's look at businesses now.
Businesses are also victims of this crime type. Equally so, and the routine seemed to be the giveaway because we're comfortable with what we know, and what we urging business people, formal or informal business, is that they should change their banking routine. There are a number of branches that they can use instead of going to the very same branch every day. And instead of doing your banking on a Monday, vary your banking days. And also, what we've also noticed with businesses, especially for casual payment of casuals, laborers, is that some of them are paid in the open. So we advise them not to do that. Use alternative methods to pay their salaries or whatever. And also going to the bank with a marked vehicles also is another giveaway. So we encourage informal business people, both formal and informal, to look at alternatives methods of either paying salaries or even transacting for that matter.
Sinaye ke Dr. Yilungelo yena ke uphume dutywa. Dr. wamkelekile enkqubeni?
Yebo, hello ma.
Hello ma'am. Hello Dada.
Yebo. Yes, I just want to indicate something, because I think this crime is not only about carrying cash or the amount of cash that a person carries. Because, for example, just last night, out of my account, I just saw a transaction of 1,600 and something at about 11 o'clock at night. Fortunately, I was awake, so I was able to call and stop the card and ask them to further investigate it. And you see, I was really surprised. That is why I'm saying I think the crime now is no longer about those ones who are just going to hijack your wallet and run away, that you need to carry a small amount of cash. But it's also about the systems in the ATMs themselves. I feel that they are not very safe. That is why I think something needs to be done. I don't know what. But even myself, where I'm standing now, I feel not very safe with the money in the bank. You see? Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much, Doctor. I see you nodding your head, Mr. Twynham. Your comment?
Well, certainly, I guess from what I've heard that somewhere along the line, his card could have probably been compromised, and he refers to an ATM. Obviously, tips to the public out there is that if you're uncomfortable using a particular ATM, don't transact. Highly unlikely that bank staff will be approaching you while you're doing a transaction to be of assistance. It's probably some criminal element who are trying to make sure that they get hold of your detail on your card or your card,
all right,
which they then skim and hand back to you. So what should happen is similar to protecting your PIN at all times. Your card should always be protected and not be not seek advice. If you seek advice in terms of help at an ATM, rather go into the bank to get assistance, as opposed to asking anybody loitering in the vicinity of the ATM, because that's probably where you're going to start seeing compromising of your card details.
All right.
And then you have this type of transaction.
Okay, so now Amos from Israel. Amos, wamkelekile nkubeni?
Yebo manjani?
Siyaphila tata, kunjani?
Siyaphila ma. Ma bengithanda ukuthi ugovernment ngathi angathatha nama-soja wakudala laba babuye ku-MK obuningi babo banganamsebenzi nabo bazoba ama-security through South Africa yonke ema-banks bakhona nabo ukusiza lama-security alaphaya namaphoyisa wonke ma. Ase please ngiyacela ngazo ngibona umuntu oronjana ngazi ma.
Enkosi kakhulu ke tata for your contribution.
Siyabonga ma.
Siyabulela kakhulu kuye Amos from Israel. Let me come to you. He is coming up with a suggestion, but I wanted to find out as well from your side, what programs are you doing and how are you intensifying programs to prevent such incidents?
We do have also awareness programs where we are, of course, working in conjunction with SABC, and we have our uniform police officer doing patrols around the banks, and that is a bit of what we are doing to try and assist in this regard.
All right. Kubaluleke kangakanani na ukwazi ba ungaya ngeliphi ixesha ebhankeni?
Kunamaxesha esithi ngamaxesha apho incidents ziphakamile khona. Umzekelo, umvulo after a long weekend are perceived to be insuku ezifana nezo. Ulwesine nolwehlanu, especially kwi-associated robbery, ngamanye nje amaxesha aphakamileyo kwizenzo ze-associated robberies.
All right, sinayo Mavis from Tembisa. Mavis, wamkelekile nkubeni? Mama, ndicela ke undicithele ivolume. Ndiyaphila mama, ndicela undicithele ivolume yakho ke.
Okay,
Enkosi kakhulu. Ndiyaphila mama, kunjani kuwe?
Inkhona.
Mama, ndicela undicimele i-TV okanye ucuthe ivolume.
Sinenkinga thina.
Mama.
Sinenkinga thina e-Eastern Cape Expressway ne.
Ewe ma.
Abantu badla abantu laba abakhipha imali zabantu izindlu zabo izindlu zabo ezakudala ndithi manje ababantu abakhipha imali abazisimali zemizi yabo tatamini cela ukuthi nisithintele bona.
All right mama, ndizawucela ubambe ke emnxebeni khona umuntu ozawuthetha nawe mhlamba kuncede ke ngale ngxaki unayo, kodwa ingumbe esithetha ngawo namhlanje ngifuna nokukhumbuza ke ababukele ekhaya xa uzawuthetha nathi okanye usifonela zama ke ucima i-TV yakho okanye ucuthe ke ivolume yakho ngoba ke asizovana xa kunjalo. All right, we're talking about these tips and we're talking about how important it is to know the best times for doing certain types of transactions and when are those times. Again, the responsibility of consumers and customers, what would you say to that in being aware of your surroundings?
Well, firstly, this is the whole objective. This is obviously to encourage personal safety. Personal safety throughout, similar to what one would do at home, and one when leaves home, that there's still a responsibility on you as an individual to look at your personal safety. That includes your banking details, your bank cards, whatever the case may be. In terms of you transacting and the best times to transact, again, Ronnie alluded to a little earlier. Try not to keep a routine, because routine is what these people pry on, and ensure that they are able to do their spotting and their robberies in given times. So again, these are things that one must look at in terms of transacting from a personal point of view, because it certainly will help in minimizing those opportunities.
All right, for now let's take our final ad break. Please stay tuned. Welcome to our last segment. Sihlabele mgama ke ngencoko yethu yanamhlanje engezilumkiso ke zokuhamba sithwele izixa ezikhulu zemali. Phambi kokuba siqhubeke sinaye ke uDikeleti from Barberton. Dikeleti wamkelekile enkqubeni?
Hallo, sesinjani?
Siyaphila, sesikunjani?
Ya, nami ngiyabonga ngene kule comment leyo ne problem. Ngomhla ka 24 September ngiyodlowa imali from Capitec ya Standard, ATM ya Standard Bank, mara yini card la FNB ngashiya 1,100 rand. Kha 25 months return back ngithola le mali ayikho. Ngitshela mina phela ikhadi imali ayikho, sangena ekhasi imali bayathi sibayepha kutona statement lesibhaliwe imali iphumile angathi sikuteni kukhona kanjani lokho na ngicela kubuta lapho.
Alright, and ukuvanga kakuhle ndiyazi uma mhlambi nibambile na ndicela ubambe tikeleti ufuna uthini ngicela uphinde mama tikeleti usekhona
ngomhla ka 24 September.
Okay mama.
Ngeholiday ngithathe card ngayidrop ngikhipha imali ngokhipha le mali ngashiya ibalance 1.1.
Okay.
Mhla 25 ngibona ngiyapela card walithatha khipha imali uthola imali ayikho la ngene ekhasi uthola ku-statement sakhe uthi le mali bayithethe ngibakuphi ayikabhala kude ngoba uTebhenki basikude buyaneningi and since wareturn back abamfollow bathi buyaneningi buye Friday buyaneningi ngifuna ukubuta sikokhoneka njani kunemuntu lapho kungena ku-system angathi ku-statement yabhala bangathi into nasibonekela ini.
All right, enkosi kakhulu ke mama. But what she's looking into is card fraud. I don't know if you want to touch on that.
Kunemininingwane engekho clear. Kune scenario ezimbini kunoba zenzekile phaya. Okokuqala silazi ukuthi icard lakhe ukuthi lisekuyena which means that kune possibility ukuthi what we call card swapping into abayenzekile while sebhizi kwe ATM no bamphazamisile baswap ama card but that doesn't come clear kule information asinika zona. Any scenario yokuthi icard lakhe sinakwenzeka ukuthi liskinyiwe, something that Kevin touched on earlier on, then imali yabe ke ngoku iyabiwa kwi-account yakhe etele those are the scenarios. Into efuneka zenzile exactly le ayenzileyo wahamba ureport ebhankeni uphando luzawuqhubekeka then
bayawubuyela kuye xa besebegqibile. All right, ndiyafuna ubuza kuwe kwicala lamapolisa ukuba abantu benze ntoni na when they find themselves in situations where you suspect you are being followed.
Yeah, we are saying that if one feels that is being followed, you can just pull into the nearest filling station so that you can call the police, alert them about the ordeal, and to make use of our uniformed police officers who are doing patrols around the banks to report to them so that we can, give this matter the attention they deserve.
I understand that SABC will be rolling out a national campaign with regards to this. Tell us more about that.
That is correct, Sisanda. On the 14th of October, we'll be doing a national launch in conjunction with partners, SABS being one of them, Crime Line, and as I said, we have the pamphlet in terms of Shout. Those are the partners that will be embarking on this campaign, and it will entail a number of activities through print media, electronic media, messaging, tips, and discussions about this particular crime type to create as much awareness as we can, so that we reach the objective that we want to get to minimize the opportunity.
Obviously, this is a yearly campaign. Ndiyafuna ukwazi niyayifumanisa into yokubana abantu bayayiva le message niza nayo.
Singatsho sisana sithi abantu bayayiva message. If uyakhumbula ekuvuleni kwethu ndithe ngo-2009 as incidents besihleli phaa ku-342 and ngoku usukela ngo-2011 2012 ngo-2013 sibonile ukuthi we are leveling up apha ko-1200 1300, which means ukuthi i-campaign iyasisebenzela ngolu hlobo lokuba there is more reporting, but kusenomsebenzi omninzi ekufuneka siwenzile ke kodwa ukulwa ubundlobongela because uze ukwazi ukulwa nobundlobongela i-reporting mechanisms zibalulekile ukuthi uyazi ukuthi i-magnitude yale problem ikangakanani na. So ndingatsho ndithi idabi lona ekupheleni kosuku sizawuwina.
The public has a major role to play as well reporting these crimes. Who should they call?
Well, it's quite obvious. If it's if they've been robbed of their card or in cash, the police service are the one that they must report it to.
But the message is you report if you suspect any bank-related crime.
Correct. We obviously encourage the general public out there that with regard to crime that it should be reported. I think it's widely advertised that there are various avenues where this can be done, not only at a bank, but the police services, a crime line. There's a whole host of avenues that one can utilize, and we really encourage the public to report these matters. And if they are victim, even more so that it should be reported.
I mean, ungafuna ukugxininisa uthini wena kulomba xa sesizama uvalelisa?
Sisana ndifuna ukugxininisa ukuthi singabantu sizi-bank customers, siyi-communities, funeke sithathele i-safety yethu ukuthi yes amapolisa anendima ekufuneka idlalile kodwa ke funeka iqale ngathi. Hence le campaign igxininisa kwinto ezifana nokuba abantu funeke bebe aware, the public aware. They can only be aware if there is information, and la majelo afana nenkqubo yakho ngawo ke azasinceda ukuthi spread the message. Okwesibini le campaign sizama ukuthi i-security yabantu ibe ngundoqo, sibeke ngaphambili. Kevin besetshula ngaphambili wathi ibhanka aziluzi apha, at the end of the day i-bank customer elahlekelwa imali. Kodwa ke i-concern esinayo ukuthi i-safety ye-customer ze-bank zethu. Okwesithathu sizama ukuvala, silimite amathuba e-crime opportunities by empowering i-bank customers.
Alright, ngiyabulela kakhulu ke. Hayi ke mawethu, siza kubamba apho ke namhlanje inkqubo sithemba ukuba ke bululutho kuni babukeli. I would like to thank our studio guests for making time to be here to share these important tips. Ngibulela nani ke babukeli ukuba nibe nathi kude kubeleli ixesha. Please join my co-presenter Alisha Jali for another live consumer topic of the week next Friday. Ukufumana ke impinda yenkqubo zethu, please tune in to the same channel on Monday mornings from 9:30 to 10:30. From me, Sisanda Jonas, and the entire team, it's goodbye. Nibe nexesha elimnandi.